On July 28th, 1914, the First World War broke out, with battles fought not only in Europe, but also Africa, the Middle East, and naval battles in the Pacific and the Atlantic. It was the first war in history with global recruitment, worldwide supply chains, and troop movements across continents, with colonial empires directly involved in the conflict. The war lasted just over 4 years, ending on November 11th, 1918. The number of casualties was staggering. It's estimated that 9 to 11 million soldiers were killed in direct combat. A further 6 to 13 million civilians died from bombings, disease, starvation, and genocides, bringing the total estimated deaths to around 20 million people. But why did this war happen? What led to such sacrifice and loss of life? In this video, we'll explore the steps leading up to the conflict. This is World War I, the road to war. To understand why the war happened, we must go back in time to explore the tensions and other conflicts in Europe. Before 1871, Germany as we know it today did not exist. Rather, the region was divided into many sovereign states and kingdoms. They all mostly spoke German or variants of the language, so this was a unifying factor between the states. There was a region called Prussia, which was by far the largest and populous German state. Prussia had formed a strong military, one of the most organized and disciplined of the time. They were able to extend their power and influence over the German states, creating a free trade zone between them, boosting economic production. The Chancellor of Prussia at the time, Otto von Bismarck, was a political genius and success. He wanted to unite the German states under Prussian leadership. Prussia also had a monarchy. Their king was King Wilhelm I. France was wary of a growing Prussian influence in the region and saw them as a threat to their empire. In 1870, Spain offered their vacant throne to Prince Leopold, a relative of the Prussian king. This outraged France, who meant there would be a Prussian influence on both sides of its country. Under pressure, Prince Leopold withdrew his candidacy. France sent an ambassador to the Prussian king Wilhelm I, seeking guarantee that no Prussian monarch would ever seek the throne again in Spain. King Wilhelm I politely refused and sent a telegram to the Chancellor, Otto von Bismarck, summarizing his meeting. However, Otto von Bismarck edited the telegram to make it seem like the king insulted the French ambassador. Bismarck then released this to the press. He wanted to provoke France into action, to make them look like the aggressor, and use this as fuel to unify the German states. It worked perfectly. The French felt humiliated, the Germans felt insulted by France's demands, and German nationalism began to soar. On July 1870, France declared war on Prussia, and the other German states also fought alongside Prussia. The French were defeated within 6 months, and on January 18, 1871, King Wilhelm I was crowned Emperor of a now unified Germany. Furthermore, Germany took control of an area called Alsace-Lorraine, which was located on the German-French border, and was also forced to pay huge reparations to Germany, which caused great resentment amongst the French. Germany was born and was now the new central force in Europe. The Balkans refers to a group of countries in southeast Europe, including Albania, Bosnia, Bulgaria, Croatia, Kosovo, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Serbia, and parts of Greece, Romania, Slovenia, and Turkey. It should be noted that the term Balkans isn't universally recognized as a defined geographic location and is disputed as to where the borders lie, but this is generally an accepted definition for the time. The Ottoman Empire was a powerful Islamic empire based in modern-day Turkey, which expanded into the Balkans over the centuries, and by the 1500s they controlled much of this land. The Ottoman Empire was one of the most ethnically and culturally diverse empires in history. It was predominantly Muslim, but included large Christian and Jewish communities, which were given autonomy to govern their own affairs. Non-Muslims were penalized by a special protection tax called the jizya and were generally treated as second-class citizens. Though, overall, the cultures coexisted relatively peacefully for many years. However, over time, tensions between the communities rose, which fostered an air of nationalism, which led to the Ottomans losing territories through many civil wars and revolutions. Notably was the independence of Greece by 1830, then followed Serbia, Bulgaria, and Romania by the mid to late 1800s. The fall of the Ottoman Empire provided opportunities for European powers such as Britain, France, and Russia to expand their own territories, and the future of the region was often dubbed the Eastern Question. This set the stage for the events that would lead to the outbreak of war in 1914. Russia saw itself as the protector of Orthodox Christians in the Balkans and as the leader of Pan-Slavism, which was a movement to unite Slavic people under Russian guidance. Slavic people were an ethnic and linguistic group of people who shared historical, cultural, and religious connections, and spoke languages such as Russian, Polish, and Serbian, among others. The languages overlapped in grammar and vocabulary, and so were often seen as variations of each other. In 1875, around 10,000 to 20,000 Christian peasants in Herzegovina began an uprising in response to the heavy taxation and oppressive rule by the Ottomans in the region. Droughts and crop failures made the population more desperate. They were met with heavy resistance by the Ottomans, and many of those 20,000 civilians lost their lives. It's estimated a further 250,000 people were displaced following the rebellion. In 1876, another revolution broke out in Bulgaria, which was brutally suppressed by the Ottomans, who killed around 30,000 people. These became known as the Bulgarian Horrors, which were watched upon by the European powers. These uprisings were supported by Serbia, who had been independent from the Ottomans since 1830, and also by the independent nation of Montenegro, who were both long-term supporters of Slavic rebellions. In 1876, both Serbia and Montenegro declared war on the Ottoman Empire. However, the Ottomans were better trained and equipped, which meant they quickly defeated both countries and advanced deep into Serbia. In Russia, the public opinion demanded they take action, as a feeling of nationalist duty grew across the country. Russia began mobilizing their 400,000 strong army and pressured the Ottomans to stop the war. As a result of the rising tensions in the Balkans, the Constantinople Conference convened on December 23, 1876, which was held in Istanbul, which is the modern-day name of Constantinople. It was attended by England, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy, and Russia. The purpose was to negotiate reforms in the Ottoman-controlled Balkans, to calm tensions in the region, and to find a solution to the worsening humanitarian crisis. The key proposals included the self-government and security of Christians and fairer tax reforms with international oversight to ensure they were enforced. Proposals were also put forward to redraw geographic boundaries between the ethnic groups. Russia in particular were pushing hard for these reforms. However, the Ottomans refused the proposals, and on April 24, 1877, Russia declared war on the Ottoman Empire, with the aim to liberate the Balkan Christians and end Ottoman control in the region. Romania also joined the war, contributing some 50,000 troops. Eventually, Russia, Romania, Serbia, and Montenegro defeated the Ottomans. It's estimated that over 500,000 people lost their lives in this war, with all sides suffering heavy casualties. In 1878, the Ottomans signed the Treaty of San Stefano with Russia, without any of the other European powers being consulted. This treaty gave Serbia and Montenegro new territory. It recognized the independence of Romania, imposed heavy reparations on the Ottomans to Russia, and most importantly, created an autonomous Bulgaria that was heavily pro-Russian, gave the Russians strategic sea access. Britain and Austria-Hungary objected to this treaty, which they felt gave too much influence to the Russians, and demanded they be revised, threatening military action. So the Treaty of Berlin was signed, which reduced the control the Russians had in the region. Most notably, Austria-Hungary were given the right to administer Bosnia, but it was still recognized as part of the Ottoman Empire. Bulgaria was divided and weakened. Serbia, Montenegro and Romania also gained less territory than they would have in the Treaty of San Stefano. Overall, the Treaty of Berlin preserved a weakening Ottoman Empire to limit Russian influence in the region, which prevented any further conflict with Britain and Austria-Hungary. Any changes to territories were not allowed without agreement between the major European powers. A year later, in 1879, Germany also became concerned with Russian influence in the region, and to protect themselves signed a pact called the Dual Alliance with Austria, promising to support each other if they were attacked by Russia. And 3 years later, Italy entered a military pact with Germany and Austria because Italy had clashed with France over colonial ambitions in Tunisia. They promised to support Austria and Germany against any aggression from France. After the Treaty of Berlin in 1878, Austria-Hungary occupied Bosnia-Herzegovina, but the Ottomans still considered it their territory. Serbia also viewed Bosnia-Herzegovina as historic Serb land, populated by Orthodox Slavs who shared language, culture and religion with the Serbs, and had nationalistic ambitions to unite the countries. However, in 1908, Austria-Hungary forcibly annexed the country, declaring them part of their empire without consulting any other major power. The Ottomans protested this move, but were not in a position to respond with military action, having not recovered from their defeat against Russia a few decades prior. Serbia felt humiliated by this, as they saw Bosnia as their rightful land, and this fueled deep resentment towards Austria-Hungary, which led to the creation of many nationalistic secret societies. Meanwhile, Russia had a secret deal with Austria. They had agreed to the annexation in exchange for Austrian support for Russian naval access to a key waterway in northern Turkey. However, Austria did not secure any support on the international stage for Russia and went ahead with the annexation anyway. Russia felt betrayed and pledged their support for Serbia. Germany and Austria had a formal military alliance, and Germany supported Austria's annexation, strengthening their partnership. Britain and France were concerned with Austria's actions, especially since this violated the Treaty of Berlin of 1878. By 1909, pressure from the Germans meant that Russia and Serbia reluctantly accepted the annexation, along with Britain and France, but tensions continued to rise. Russia no longer trusted Germany or Austria and saw stronger ties with France and Britain. Tensions were high and sides were forming. This whole period was called the powder keg of Europe. Even though the Ottomans were weakened over previous territorial losses, they still held control over some Balkan countries like Macedonia, Kosovo, and Albania. These territories were also claimed by Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, and Montenegro, all of whom were once under Ottoman influence but had each gained their own independence. Under Russian encouragement, Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, and Montenegro formed a military alliance called the Balkan League. Their goal was to coordinate attacks and divide up Ottoman land. In 1912, the Balkan League declared war on a weakened Ottoman Empire. In just 7 months, the Ottomans were totally defeated. All the remaining lands of Macedonia, Kosovo, and Albania were divided by the Balkan League. Bulgaria and Serbia had a secret treaty to divide Macedonia. However, Serbia kept more of Macedonia than agreed, and Greece also claimed part of the country. In 1913, Bulgaria launched a surprise attack against Serbian and Greek forces in Macedonia. Everyone turned on Bulgaria, who were defeated within 2 months and lost all claims to Macedonia. Serbia had now doubled in size and was much stronger. Austria feared the growing Serbian influence in the region. Roughly 40% of Bosnia's population were ethnic Serbs. Many saw Serbia as their national homeland, even though they lived under Austrian rule. Serbian nationalism, after 1878 and especially after the Balkan Wars, inspired many Bosnian Serbs to support the idea of a Greater Serbia, uniting all Serbs in one state. This meant violent political organizations emerged from this sentiment. This is why Austria viewed Serbia as a dangerous threat to their occupation of Bosnia. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the first in line for the Austrian throne. On June 28, 1914, he and his wife visited Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, to inspect the army there. However, a violent political movement in Bosnia called the Black Hand had planned to kill him. A grenade was thrown by a Black Hand activist at the Archduke's car, but missed, and they continued with their schedule. The grenade injured several civilians instead. The Archduke later decided to visit the victims of the previous grenade bombing at the local hospital. Whilst on the way there, the Archduke's driver took a wrong turn and stalled the engine close to where another assassin was waiting. The assassin, a nationalist named Gavrilo Princip, stepped forward and shot the Archduke in the neck and his wife in the abdomen. They both died shortly after. This was to be the spark that triggered a series of events leading to World War I. The Austrians blamed Serbia for the assassination, claiming the assassin had military training in Serbia. In July 1914, Austria asked Germany for support in the matter. Germany promised unconditional backing, even if this led to war with Serbia or Russia. This was known as the Blank Check Agreement. Austria gave Serbia an ultimatum, demanding they suppress and dissolve anti-Austrian movements, including the Black Hand. Austria had names of specific individuals whom they also wanted removed from the army and government. Austria also wanted to arrest two individuals they believed were directly involved in the assassination plot, and they also wanted to take control of judicial proceedings inside Serbia to ensure a proper investigation. Serbia refused on this last point. They said giving Austria judicial authority inside their country was a violation of national sovereignty. 3 days later, Austria declared war on Serbia. Russia then began to mobilize its army to defend Serbia. Germany threatened Russia and demanded they stop mobilizing, and Germany also warned France not to intervene if war broke out. However, both Russia and France refused. On the 1st of August 1914, Germany declared war on Russia. They were also preparing to attack France by going through the neutral country of Belgium. Britain had guaranteed Belgium's neutrality since 1839. On the 3rd of August 1914, Germany invaded Belgium, which led to Britain joining the war. World War I had begun. To summarize, the road to World War I was really put into motion many decades earlier with the fall of the Ottoman Empire. This created the Eastern Question, which was who was going to gain influence over the Balkans after the Ottomans fell. The Balkan states themselves went through many conflicts and wars as they gained independence. Russia had cultural and ethnic ties to the people of the Balkans and felt obligated to protect them against Ottoman oppression. They also wanted to maintain influence in the region. Germany and Austria-Hungary had a very close relationship and were keen to expand their empires. France and Britain were worried about a growing German power. France had recently lost Alsace-Lorraine to the Germans in 1870, which caused resentment. There was genuine imperial competition between the great powers of Europe, which led to alliances being formed between France, Britain, and Russia, called the Triple Entente, and also Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, which was called the Triple Alliance. Although Italy actually remained neutral during the initial outbreak of war, and later joined Britain, France, and Russia against Germany and Austria-Hungary, breaking their earlier pact. These tensions all played out in the Balkans, which were called the powder keg of Europe. Ultimately, the assassination of the Archduke of Austria led to a chain reaction of countries entering the conflict, which became known as World War I.